What he didn't foresee was my armpits. The problem is not the dust from the outside, buddy. It's what's coming from the inside of the suit.
Welcome to Mistopian, the podcast that evaluates the past's overzealously inaccurate predictions about the future that we now live in. Because why have self-lacing sneakers when you can have poop emojis instead? I am your host, Alex, joined here by my co-host,
Patrick.
And today, I've got a prediction for all the gentlemen out there, for all the men out there.
Okay.
So, Patrick, when you think of men's fashion today, do you like it? Like, do you like what you have to wear every day?
Sorry, your framing of that. Do you like what you have to wear? Or would you prefer to wear, I don't know, spiky shoulder pads?
Oh, but yeah, I'm asking, like, there is a uniform, basically, that the Western man wears.
And we've had it for years.
Centuries.
Just the simple suit with a tie. Mm-hmm. I realize there's a lot of style changes within that, but you could wear a suit and tie going back for over a century now, and you would not look out of place. Now, if you're talking about the type of fashion where I get to wear what I'm wearing right now, a t-shirt and jeans, comfort wear is amazing here in the future. We have developed to a point where we get to wear comfortable clothes all the time, and it's pretty great. People go to the store in basketball shorts and sweatpants, and I have like a weird barrier about that.
I was going to say, you don't, but other people do.
Other people do. It's just because that's what I sleep in, and I feel like I don't want to go to the store in my sleepwear, but other people are like, I'm going to go to the store in pajamas.
Oh, absolutely.
And great for them. That's fine for them. I can make personal choices.
What are your feelings about the suit? Because you don't have to wear a full suit to your job, but you've worn like ties and things. I mean, you've had to wear suits on occasion.
There are pros and there are cons. The pros, you know what you're going to wear. Like, you don't have to think about it too much. Sometimes I have to advise students on proper, business attire, and it is so much easier for me to say, guys, get a suit and tie. Women, dress nice.
You're on your own there.
I can't provide a lot of guidance. Just try to dress nice.
I'll let you know if it's not right.
So it's nice in that you know what it is, and most men are not particularly fashion-minded, and so that's pretty easy for them.
Right, you just have your little uniform.
Yeah, and I think if you get a well-cut suit, you also look pretty nice in it.
Not super comfortable, though, right?
No. Anytime I have like a suit, I don't like to lift my arms too much. So it's got its pros. It's got its cons. It is what it is.
Well, there was a man, to segue smoothly, back in 1939 who shared the same opinion that you do about suits, that they are cumbersome, that they're uncomfortable, that they lack the freedom of self-expression. And so he designed an outfit for the 21st century man. Would you like to know more about this design here?
Desperately.
Good, because that's the whole point of the podcast today.
Okay, before we get into this, what if this sparks a transformation in me? And I'm like, Alexandria, you have to make this for me. Because you make clothes.
I do enjoy sewing. I have never made menswear, though. I have a feeling, though, with this particular design, it's not going to matter that much that I don't have menswear experience.
Okay.
So, where this came from. Vogue magazine. You're familiar with Vogue, right?
Yeah, it's one of those magazines that feels like it's been around forever.
So, in 1939, in their February 1st issue, they had a special World's Fair edition of the magazine. You're familiar with the World's Fair too, right?
Was the World's Fair held in New York that year?
It was. Yep.
Okay, and so that's where like the Men in Black towers are. Whenever they had World's Fairs back then, it was a big deal, and everybody in our overall culture seemed to get in on it and have like their own little spin on stuff.
Right, and the World's Fair, I didn't realize this until I started doing more research, but it lasted like a year.
Yeah.
It was the whole year. It wasn't this week-long exhibition. It was this kind of permanent fixture wherever it was being held. And this one in particular, this 1939 one, was the first one that was based on the future.
Oh.
Which is, I feel like that's what most people think about when they think of the World Fair, right? Like all this futuristic kind of things. But this was the first one. The opening slogan of this one was "Dawn of a New Day." The whole point was it was allowing all visitors to look at the world of tomorrow.
So this is going to be the thing that this podcast keeps coming back to probably about once or twice a season.
Honestly, probably. There's going to be so much to pull from this particular moment in time. It's also a super important time period because I don't know if you're thinking back to dates, but 1939, in terms of global events.
Hitler's about to invade Poland.
Yeah, exactly. World War II started several months into the World's Fair, and that actually wound up affecting a lot of the exhibits, obviously. And so it was this huge cultural moment, I feel like, not just for the United States, but for the entire world. So Vogue decided that they were going to have this special issue. This prediction comes from a specific article that was titled "Vogue Presents Fashions of the Future on 9 following pages, costumes by 9 leading industrial designers."
Industrial designers.
That caught my attention too.
Okay.
Industrial designers designing costumes of the future. What's the story there? Those don't really go together. I don't really think about people who are designing lamps as also being people who are designing dresses.
Yeah, I feel like maybe once or twice I've seen things like a Porsche designed bag or belt or something where you're kind of trading in on the design aesthetic of that one piece of industrial machinery, or I guess not industrial machinery, but that one specific brand.
Right.
But not really what this seems to be doing.
Yeah. So the reason behind all this, behind getting these industrial designers, really kind of comes out of this, honestly, this snobbishness on Vogue's part.
Okay.
So the article in question actually starts out with a conversation, like a dialogue piece. I don't know if this is a real conversation that took place or if this was just kind of imagined up, but it's between the personification of Vogue and the personification of the World's Fair.
Okay, so this is either a person who represents Vogue talking to a representative from the World's Fair, or a literal magazine talking to a year-long event in a weird anthropomorphized form.
I thought that we could read it as a dialogue, and I kind of turned it into a little script.
Okay, well, we got a little radio play coming at you.
Here we go.
This is the New York World's Fair. What is Vogue going to do about the fashions of tomorrow? Just hitting right off the bat. Not hello, not how's it going.
Oh, we are sure we do not know. Today is so full of exciting revivals and thrilling comebacks that we never think of tomorrow.
Never think of tomorrow. Fashion? Never thinking about tomorrow. That is an amazing reveal of the 1939 thinking.
They are concerned with the now.
Shame on you. Tomorrow is the battle cry of today. Could you not create some fashions of the distant future? Could you? Could you please? You are Vogue.
Note the 2 question marks.
2 question marks. Sorry. You'll have to, if you're a listener, you'll have to actually look at this because I am ad-libbing at the end of these lines a little bit. Just getting into character here as a very judgy New York World's Fair.
We never create. We observe and report, discover and point up. We leave designing to designers. Which is actually a pretty good point. Vogue magazine, they are not fashion designers.
They're journalists.
They're journalists. They report on the fashions. And so for the World's Fair to come in and say, hey, get up some of your designers and design us something for the future. It's like a misunderstanding of what Vogue does, right?
Literally not what we do. Could you not ask the designers who create the fashions of today to give you their ideas about the fashions of a far tomorrow? Could you ask somebody as a journalist? Is that a really hard thing for you to do? Could you please just make a phone call?
We doubt whether they will want to do that. They live too much in the present. Their sensitivity is delicately attuned to the fleeting changes in the scenery of today. Their genius lies in the quick response to the fluctuations of contemporary taste, not in forecasting the fashionable weather for thousands of years ahead.
Vogue sounds exhausting.
They do.
Could you just go, I mean, we can try.
Or just a no. just say no.
Oh, they're so sensitive and they're delicately attuned. Oh my God. Just make a phone call. Make a phone call. If neither Vogue nor the fashion designers knows about the fashion trend of the next century, who does? Okay, well, this is where I'm going to go against the New York World's Fair because it's a century ahead. Nobody does. Like nobody does.
Nobody does. So now we get to the crux of how they got these industrial designers. You do.
But what?
You have gathered around you the leading industrial designers of this country, men who shape our destinies in our kitchen sinks.
Sorry. Vogue comes back with, yeah, but you got a guy who created a kitchen sink, so that's probably about going to be the same, right?
Men who shape our destinies in our kitchen sinks, streamline our telephones and our skyscrapers, men who brought surrealism to the department stores.
Did they? Did they bring surrealism to department stores?
I mean, with like furniture.
Surrealism? Like, do they have like couches that have winky eyes? Like,
I mean, there was a big kind of like the surrealism movement really like stretched into like some areas of industrial design. Yeah, like lamps and things like that.
That's interesting. I am not letting you get through this paragraph.
No, you were not. Men who brought surrealism to the department stores and the betrilant perisphere to Long Island, they know all about the problems, the dreams, and the realities that the future has in store for us. They are trained to think ahead. They know tomorrow like their own streamlined pockets. We will offer them the hospitality of our pages and let them have some fun with clothes of tomorrow.
So here's my takeaway. World's Fair calls Vogue and says, hey, we'd like for you to do a thing about the clothes of the future. Vogue is like, yeah, no, we don't know how to do that. And they're like, could you maybe ask some designers? No.
No.
We're not going to do that.
They're concerned with the now.
I mean, if we gotta, we'll let you go talk to some industrial designers and we'll give you some space, but please don't bother us.
It will not surprise you that these industrial designers were all men.
Oh, well, I would have been shocked if they weren't.
Sure. None of them had any experience in fashion design.
No, of course not. I would have been shocked if they had.
So, of those 9 men, 8 of them designed clothing for the future woman. And I will say that they had varying degrees of some, I'll say, suspiciously skin-tastic designs.
Oh, man.
There was at least 1 or 2 guys that thought with the advent of inside air conditioning and heating that we won't need clothes anymore.
Did they also design video games in the 2000s?
Right. With these 9 industrial designers, 8 of them designed clothing for the future woman. Only one of them, Gilbert Rohde, designed an outfit for the future man.
This is interesting. They thought about fashion. They thought entirely about women. Mm-hmm. And then they have one person dedicated to men. This is like a Project Runway season where everything's about women, but they have the one episode about the dude.
Yeah, apparently he said, women's clothes are pretty good as they are, but men's need radical revision.
Okay. That's fascinating.
This was also, honestly, a really cool idea because these industrial designers made the designs and described them to people, but then they got clothing brands, famous clothing brands like Saks Fifth Avenue, to actually make the designs, and then they put women and one man in these completed outfits, so it made this full multi-page spread of the actual outfit. Gilbert Rohde was a very big American industrial designer. He died in 1944, so it was actually pretty shortly after this. He really advocated the modern, what we would consider to be the quote-unquote modern look, the idea of like modern furnitures and interiors. And he worked for a lot of different companies. Most famously, he worked for Herman Miller.
Oh, okay. So when you're saying modern, you kind of mean like the mid-century, well, we now call mid-century modern.
Mid-century modern aesthetic. Yeah,
Okay.
the minimalism, the clean lines.
Yeah.
All of that.
The Herman Miller Aeron chair. I've listened to NPR before.
Yeah. So he helped to design a lot of products for Herman Miller that kind of established their reputation for modern design. He became known for experimenting with lots of different types of materials, which is going to actually come up in this, including plexiglass, lucite, bakelite, fabricoid, which was this leather-like fabric that was made by DuPont. One of his most innovative designs was this molded plexiglass chair that he actually made in 1939 for the New York World's Fair. He was the influential designer when it comes to the idea of quote-unquote modern, or in our case, mid-century modern, minimalist designs. I'm going to have you read the caption for the image because it came with a little caption description, and then I'm going to show you what it is, and then we'll be able to just talk about whatever aspect of the design you want to talk about.
Caption: Gilbert Rohde banishes buttons, pockets, collars, ties. Man of the next century will revolt against shaving and wear a beautiful beard, says the designer of metal furniture, lamps, clocks, pianos, boilers. His hat will be an antenna snatching radio out of the ether. His socks disposable. You know, that's a good idea. Forget everything else. Disposable socks. They're always clean. His suit minus tie, collar, buttons. His belt will hold all his pockets ever did. Like Batman. Mr. Rohde explains the whole revolutionary idea on page 138. Hoo-wee. There is a lot there.
So for those of you that are listening, at this point I'm going to be showing Patrick the image of the design. So this would be a great time for you to go, and there should be a link to the outfit in question in the show notes so that you can get an idea of what we're looking at here. If for some reason the link's not working, you could just Google Vogue 1939 Future of Men's Fashion. Okay, so you ready?
I am so ready.
Okay.
I am primed.
Patrick, I present to you the man of the 21st century.
Oh my God. Oh, wow. Oh man, this would be a great cosplay.
Yeah, that's a real deep cut.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Describe what you see.
Okay. So first of all, you're wearing kind of a Carolina blue outfit. It's all blue, like top, bottom, single color. But you got the drip going from the headband to whatever this center thing is to the shoes. You've got this alternate like magenta color.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty great. You're definitely got some Alakazam pants. The MC hammer. The pants appear to be tucked into the socks. But he predicts the baggy pants trend. He just didn't realize it would go away. Absolutely, that is a Batman utility belt. Though there's no way that those little like metal things are going to hold a wallet, and they're curved, so they're not going to hold a phone. But we're not going to need phones because we're going to listen out of what looks to be like a colander on our heads. This radio antenna is circular in design.
Mm-hmm.
And looks like a metal wire basket with a like tennis headband. We're all gonna have Robin Hood facial hair. The facial hair appears to be like it is fashioned.
It's curled.
It's curled. That is wild. You got a little Errol Flynn mustache there, and it's covering our ears. There's like a vest that almost looks like chain link fence.
Yeah.
Also, you got a turtleneck.
Oh yeah.
Whew. I love this. It's horrible. I have questions.
Oh, I got some answers for you. We can talk about any aspect of the outfit in question. In the back of the magazine, each of the designers were able to have basically their own article where they went into a lot of detail about their design.
It is a striking photograph. The photograph, it is at a Dutch angle, but the guy's kind of tilted so that he looks straight, even though his legs are at an incline. And then you've got futuristic wires around him and like a big cardboard cutout of... It's just a big gray slab, so it kind of looks like a refrigerator. But it is amazing. Those shoes I think you can get away with. Everything else I feel like looks weird, but people wear weird shoes.
The shoes look kind of normal.
They would have been weird, I think, even 10 years ago, but you could absolutely wear those shoes.
Yeah.
There's no, like, shoelaces. They're just slip-ons, which, very strange for them, but people wear a lot of that now. They're like that cool burgundy color. Oh, how do we want to attack this? There's so much there. Okay, let's just go from the strangest to the most normal. We got to talk about the antenna hat. It is by far the strangest thing on here. So let's go with that.
Okay, so the antenna hat. According to Rohde, this antenna hat would receive both radio and what he calls omega rays.
Isn't that what made the Hulk turn into the Hulk?
That would be gamma.
Oh, okay.
There's no such thing as omega rays.
Oh, okay.
He said this would help you escape from the deadly monotony of the 20th century hat. What you have to understand is Gilbert Rohde really hated the fashion that he was forced to wear. He hated the suit, which we'll talk about in a little bit. He hated the monotony and the sameness of everything. So this whole design was kind of created with this idea of being able to have self-expression.
Yeah, so nobody wants to wear a top hat anymore, or trilby, or whatever they're wearing. So we're going to wear this bat insane Kentucky Fried Chicken strainer.
He said that it would be shaped to express whims of the soul and dignity of his office.
No. No, we're not doing that.
There's no dignity in that hat?
It's an antenna hat. Does it get radio?
It gets radio waves.
But there's no speakers. I guess that's my question. Like, underneath those, like, tufts of hair, does he have secret earbuds?
No, the telephone, the radio part is in the belt.
You said that so matter of fact, like, oh, no. Like, you're not going to hear it from your ears or by your head. It's going to come out of, like, your belly, and you just have to lean over.
He also foresaw that this hat would have separate shapes depending on your personality or your career. He saw one specifically for the professor, the man about town, captains of industry, and even the Southern Colonel.
Oh, no. No.
Yeah.
What's the Southern Colonel one shaped like?
I don't know.
He only produced the circular one?
He only produced the circular one, but he saw in his mind this idea that you could have different shapes of these rings depending on, the dignity of your office.
I am speechless over this hat. It provides you none of the benefits of a hat.
No, there's no protection from the rain or the elements. Maybe we've solved that problem in the 21st century.
It's not going to shade your eyes from the sun. It's pure fashion, which is an interesting thing that, like, hats have a function, but they also have a fashion. And they're like, we're going to not have any of the function anymore.
But Patrick, it does have a function. It will be able to transmit both radio and these imaginary made-up omega waves.
Okay, hold on a second. I think that I was so keyed into the image, I didn't hear you when you said transmit.
Yeah.
We are going to be releasing our podcast via our heads, or we're going to receive.
So the radio waves are two-way. He kind of created cell phones.
Okay.
In a way. He thought that this would be like a two-way radio. But, okay, so first of all, omega waves don't exist. We've got 4 types of rays. We've got alpha, beta, electromagnetic, which is the whole light spectrum of radio all the way up to gamma rays, and neutron rays. There's no such thing.
Okay.
All those were discovered in like the 1800s to early 1900s. Maybe he thought that we would continue to discover more unique, different types of waves, so he kind of comes up with this idea of the omega waves.
Sure.
As far as I can tell, the omega waves seem to serve as almost like electricity, because the omega waves serve as a cooling and heating function of the suit.
What?
So...
I wish 5G did that.
Right? So, I'll talk about it a little bit more when I talk about the suit itself and the belt, but he thought that they would be infused with these beryllium threads, which is also not a thing.
Okay.
But that the omega waves would come in through the antenna hat and in through the belt, which would kind of act as a receiver, and then out through these beryllium threads and would work as like central AC for your suit.
Okay, so I'm going to give this guy top points for vision. He is not bound by the technology of the 30s, which would be, if you think about it, that would be restricting the possibilities if you did that.
Yeah, 1939, there were still plenty of people that literally didn't have electricity or like central plumbing in their homes.
Yeah, so he didn't want to be minimized by that.
Mm-hmm.
So he decided to go out there.
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of ways, I think he does predict that, we will have personalized radio that we carry around with us. He doesn't understand that the technology will be miniaturized, that we don't need halos about our head. And he's wrong about us having electricity in our, like wearable electricity in that way, in terms of cooling and heating. But we do have wearable technology, so he's not off base there. So top marks for vision. Execution really shows the problems with trying to predict out to an age that you can't truly foresee. Do you have any information about the turtleneck?
Do you want to talk about the suit next?
Yeah, I mean, just in general, it is head to toe. Turtleneck, down to the wrist, it's long sleeve. I don't know if the pants are tucked into the socks or if that's just the design, but it is one full bodysuit.
It's very covering, but I mean, if you think about the 30s and the suit, men constantly wearing suits, they would have been covered pretty much the exact same amount. Like,
That's true, like collars came up pretty high, yeah.
this is called the solo suit, and to him, this would be the greatest time saver of the 21st century, which is a bold statement. He hated the suit. He hated the monotony of the suit, which I thought was really fascinating because when we're thinking 30s all the way through the 50s, all men wore the same. Gilbert Rohde really hated that. He hated having to wear what he called like monochromatic, boring outfits.
His outfit's monochromatic, though.
For him, this is a riot of color.
Because it's not gray.
No.
It's not black. It's not brown.
And I'll get to this in a second, but the suit can change colors.
Oh, what?
What you're seeing basically is a jumpsuit, right?
Yeah.
This is the onesie that I have previously mentioned is my favorite futuristic fashion. Just the zip-up onesie.
Star Trek, they all wear basically onesies.
Yeah. So it has no buttons. He says it has 2 zips. I'm not sure where the second zip is. Like, the first one is pretty obvious. That one's, just down the front.
All the way down the front. Which really, I have some pee-related questions here. Pee and poop-related questions. I hate to get into, like, scatological things, but you gotta undo that unless this magical omega rays also...
No.
Like J.K. Rowling, like, vanish out your poops.
This is not a spacesuit in that sense. Any woman who has had to wear a jumpsuit or a romper has faced similar quandaries. We figured it out. It's not elegant, though. But I'm not sure where the second zip is. No collar or necktie, just a fabulous turtleneck. It's interesting that he really hated ties and he really hated collars, but he still kept what I would consider to be like something restricting around the neck.
Kept something restricting around the neck, and he also has this vertical pop of color in like the weird eggplant at the center of his chest, so which kind of mimics a tie.
He thought that you could buy this in drugstores. He said it would come in only 3 sizes, wrapped in cellophane.
Oh, he did not foresee the American body size.
He was very against fittings. That was another thing that he really found tiresome about suits, was having to go and try them on and have specific fittings. So he wanted just 3 sizes, and you could go to the corner drugstore and just pick up your outfit.
It's billowy, so you could fit a lot of different body shapes into that. That belt might be tough, though.
It's like he foresaw like the advent of Shein, of just being able to buy like a $5 one-size-fits-all jumpsuit. He said that this would be made out of transparent synthetic yarn and infinitely fine beryllium threads, and that the beryllium threads would serve as wires to transmit the omega waves to heat and cool the suit.
Okay, so that's a big whiff.
Yeah. Beryllium wire exists.
What is beryllium?
Beryllium is an element. It's a metal. Beryllium wire is definitely a thing, but I mean, it's still pretty thick as a wire. You could never, I don't even know why you would want to make it so thin as to be called a thread. It probably wouldn't hold up. It has a really high melting point, so it's used in a lot of military and aerospace applications. It's also invisible to X-rays, so you sometimes see it as window material for X-ray equipment. So I guess he thought it would be a good conductor.
Okay.
And that's why, and maybe beryllium just sounded really cool.
It does sound super futuristic and super cool.
He also said that there would be something called lastex at the wrists and ankles, which I'm assuming is elastic.
This is before a lot of synthetic fabrics, which does look like it just adheres. You don't have to fit this to your wrist. It's just stretchy on.
Right. So the wrists and ankles, you mentioned it kind of looks like it's tucked into socks, but that's part of the suit. So it has these really long wrist and ankles that are made out of that stretchable elastic material that kind of help to keep the billowiness of the arms and the legs out of your way. Because remember, this only comes in 3 sizes, so it's not necessarily going to be fitted to you, but the fitting at the ankles and the wrists makes sure that it doesn't like drag or get in the way.
What do you think the cleaning instructions look like on this?
Fantastic segue, because according to Rohde, dust would not stick to this, so it needed a lot less cleaning. It would be wrinkle proof, so you wouldn't need to iron it. I feel like he foresaw like polyester, basically.
What he didn't foresee was my armpits. The problem is not the dust from the outside, buddy. It's what's coming from the inside of the suit.
Yeah, doesn't mention BO. Doesn't mention sweat at all.
Okay.
Maybe because it's AC controlled with the beryllium threads, like you won't sweat at all because you'll be able to keep your suit nice and cool.
All right.
And he thought that the beryllium copper wire would also, in addition to heating and cooling you, be able to control the color of the suit. So you could flip a switch. In his words, you could start your day at the office in a rich gunmetal, change to deep maroon for a director's meeting, and then switch to turquoise for dinner.
But why would you do that?
Just so you can wear the same thing, but like different colors, like a peacock. You got your plumage.
I like the idea of tying this into like the whole like pickup artist atmosphere.
I can see there being these power struggles in these business meetings where you show up like wearing a color and then somebody else is wearing your same color, so you just like switch to a different one.
Also, I like how he mentioned boring colors.
I found that so fascinating, right? He spends so much time talking about how much he hates the monotony of the color of the suit. And then the 3 colors that he mentions, well, except for turquoise. I feel like turquoise is pretty bright. But he mentions rich gunmetal and deep maroon, which I consider to be pretty understated colors.
I imagine that truly wild, bright colors would have been beyond them in a lot of different ways. And so it just made it be one of those things that's a little past the imagination.
Mm-hmm. Gilbert Rohde called all of this a great revolt. He literally capitalized it, that this would be some sort of cultural shift where men would one day just shuck off the idea of the suit and that they would say no more to that and that they would want to wear something that would allow them to have freedom of expression and movement, and he basically saw the death of the suit.
I think he is absolutely right that there is a larger movement to get rid of the suit. You see so many businesses that are moving more towards casual wear, and his intention is for this to be more casual, more comfortable, less formal, pretty high up there on the vision marks, low on the execution marks, but I kind of see where he's coming from.
Yeah, do you know when the idea of always wearing a suit kind of started to fall out of fashion?
If I had to guess, that's something that came about in the 90s, but...
It was actually prior to that. The 60s and 70s, during the counter-revolutions, the suit was seen as something that, quote, the man would wear.
Yeah.
So, we even have the term a suit, the suits, as like a pejorative for, stiff businessmen or the government or something like that. So it was really during a lot of that revolutionary time that you started to see this great revolt against this restricting aspect of men's fashion.
That makes perfect sense. And yet still, suits are what people wear for certain segments of business, but not for everything.
No, I actually read this really fascinating article that made the argument that not only are suits out of popularity, but they've actually become a symbol of contrition and a lack of power. Think of all the big like tech CEOs, the people who have all the money, the top 1%ers. They're not the ones wearing suits. Who are the men wearing suits? They're the people who are having to testify in court. They're the men who are having to go to an interview. They are the people without power, and the people with power don't have to wear suits anymore.
Yeah, it's like an option for them.
Most men don't wear a suit because they want to, but because they feel like because of cultural norms or social rules that they have to, right?
You know, I want to see Casual Friday at court.
Yeah, oh my God. I'm sorry. Yes. Could you imagine how excited I would be if I've got to go to the courthouse because of a traffic ticket or something and it's on Casual Friday?
Oh, it's okay. You don't have to dress up today. No.
The judges, the lawyers, like nobody. Everybody's just wearing Big Johnson t-shirts.
Oh, it's Spirit Week. It's Hawaiian Shirt Day. But you are right, though. Like, the point why that would never happen is because of shows of power.
Mm-hmm. So the sci-fi jumpsuit, this is something that we see a lot, right? In sci-fi especially, I feel like in the mid to early 1900s, it was all these jumpsuits.
Oh, yeah.
These got really popularized in Pulp Fiction comics that involve space travel. These were originally intended to be like kind of a space travel type suit. It really took off in the 60s with Star Trek.
Yeah.
Obviously.
I mean, it's a visual shorthand. If you are a visual medium and you want to show that things are in the future, you put people in these jumpsuits, you automatically know it's the future.
So I was able to actually trace this jumpsuit all the way back to its original creation. This was created by a single guy, an Italian man named Ernesto Micheles. He went by the pseudonym Thiat, which was a palindrome.
Oh, okay.
Thayaht, because, you know, artists, they gotta come up with weird names.
You gotta have a thing.
He was a member of the futurist art movement, and so he developed this unisex jumpsuit that he called a tuta. In Italian, the word tuta, T-U-T-T-A, means all-in-one or whole, unified thing. The tuta jumpsuit is just T-U-T-A. He designed it as this utopian garment for all people, all situations, affordable, easy to sew and cut with minimal fabric wastage, being very simple and versatile. And that was in contrast to the haute couture of the day in the early 1900s. He even published instructions for cutting and sewing it in a newspaper, and he said it was the most innovative, futuristic garment ever produced in the history of Italian fashion.
But what colors did it come in?
Great question. But I thought it was really fascinating that this jumpsuit that we have seen in futuristic fashion for decades at this point came from just a single guy's vision in 1919. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is really interesting. Did his also have like this kind of lack of zippers and pockets and buttons and stuff?
Yeah, I think it was supposed to just be really easy to make, and so it wasn't very fussy and something that you could cut it out of yards of fabric without having a lot of waste. So yeah, I think it was supposed to be something that could be for anyone, anytime, any ability.
Let's start with this facial hair. Again, I think he's exactly right that we would no longer be pinned in by feeling like we have to shave, and that more variability with facial hairstyles would be really popular. It is really interesting to go back and look at the history of facial hair for men in America. This is something I have this much knowledge, and if you can't see, it's a small amount. And that a lot of that often followed presidential models.
Sure, yeah.
So nobody had facial hair truly outside of like Martin Van Buren's whiskers until Abraham Lincoln grew a beard after he was elected. And then following that, with the small exception of Andrew Johnson, we had presidents with facial hair all the way until, I think, McKinley.
Yeah, for a while.
For a long time. And then after Woodrow Wilson didn't have facial hair, then we had lots of guys with no facial hair. So it tended to follow certain trends. And in the 30s, people just didn't wear facial hair that often.
No, definitely not. Which was interesting because Gilbert Rohde, apparently saw shaving as a strange custom. He said that nature has decreed that men and women are different, and one of the primary differences is facial hair. It was kind of weird. He seemed to be under the impression that men only started shaving at the beginning of the 19th century in the Western world.
Incorrect. I have seen statues of the ancient Romans.
Yeah, we've been shaving since prehistoric times. We found evidence of sharp stones or bones that were used to remove facial hair. We know in ancient Egypt that both men and women would fully shave all of their hair because that was a symbol of being clean and having high social status. But Rohde thought that shaving defeated the purpose of nature. He thought it was this weird, quote, local tribal mannerism, and he said men were men when they wore perfumed wigs, which I thought was a fascinating statement.
Which leads to the question of, is this guy wearing a wig? Or is that his bushy hair?
I think he was kind of making the point that to him, expressions of manliness were an earlier time when men were more comfortable with hair and having it. He thought that you would be able to express your personality in these, quote, manly beards, and that you would even dye them different colors, maybe even platinum blonde. So he thought that there was a lot of manly expression inherent in having facial hair.
I think that he is, again, right in terms of his vision. We have gotten to a period where men are more likely to have facial hair. I have really scruffy facial hair that doesn't fill in because maybe I'm just not the same manly vision that Rhodes had. But the picture here, what I think is interesting is that outside of the curly locks on his chin hair, even down to the headband, he'd fit in the 70s, which
Sure.
decades after this, he's almost there.
Yeah, I also found it interesting. There's clearly some shaving going on. The guy has clean sides. He's just got this really elaborate goatee and then that kind of thin mustache. I guess we just have different definitions of what like a full manly beard looks like, because this is pretty manicured.
Yeah.
The disappearance of the suit and the clean-shaven face kind of all came at the same time, which would have been just a few decades after Gilbert Rohde predicted this. All right, what's next? We got underwear and socks.
Oh my God.
Shoes. We got the vest.
I hadn't even thought about the underwear, the non-visible portion of this. I want to save the underwear for last.
Okay.
Let's knock out this vest and this Batman belt.
Okay. So the vest. He called this the plasta vest, that this would be utilitarian but decorative, and that there would be infinite variations that you could have of it.
Sure, it's like a geometric design.
Mm-hmm.
What'd it do, though?
So he saw this as a permanent garment, that it would do a few different things, that it would, first of all, carry wires for the aforementioned omega waves, that it would be the transmitter for a two-way telephone. But mostly, he wanted this vest because not only did Gilbert Rohde hate the suit, he hated pockets. He hated pockets in his clothing. This vest would provide the only pockets in the whole outfit. He even considered this to be the highest achievement. He said, no longer need man spend years of his lifetime transferring the contents of a dozen pockets in one suit to a dozen pockets in another suit, still leaving, of course, his driving license in the suit that went to the cleaners.
Gilbert, get a wallet. It's just one thing.
This is the man bag, but in vest form, basically. You would wear this vest every day over whatever utilisuit that you were wearing, and that this would have organized spaces so that you would know where like your pen and paper was at every time, and that this is just the overgarment. It's a purse. It's a purse in vest form.
And the extremely phallic part in the middle?
So that's the plexiglass. He said there would be flexible pieces of transparent plexiglass. I also found this interesting. In the article, there's an asterisk after plexiglass where they then define it at the bottom of the article.
Because people didn't know.
Because people didn't know. It was such a new thing. So this was clearly a product that he had used and was on his mind. It doesn't seem to have a purpose beyond design. I think he just thought it looked kind of cool. Maybe, like you said earlier, he thought that would kind of take place of the tie. It's like a little pseudo tie. But yeah, you've kind of got all these chains. It would be a chrome-plated ball chain that would connect to this plexiglass in the middle.
Yeah, it's ugly. Like, if you're going to have something that only exists for a design aesthetic, I feel like it should look a little bit more than like an elongated grimace.
It's just an oblong cylinder. It's weird.
What about the belt?
Yeah, so the belt is kind of, that's where all your control switches are. This would be where your two-way radio set is. This is where you could control your heating and air in the suit.
This is where your bat shark repellent is.
It's huge. Like, it's enormous. And I didn't realize until I saw a video clip of this in motion that these two giant metal squares on either side, those are the pockets.
Okay, can we see this video clip?
Sure. It's really, really short, but you at least get to see the movement of the guy.
As for him, if he matters at all, there won't be any shaving, collars, ties, or pockets. He'll be fitted with a telephone, a radio, and containers for coins, keys, and candy for cuties.
Okay, so a couple things that I got there. One, the weird little magenta thing opens up. Like, he can go check down and look for, I guess that's where his pencils are.
I guess, yeah. It's a storage place.
And he's got candies for cuties. So, hey, cutie, got you a little peppermint.
Uh-huh.
They're grandfathers already.
Yeah. So what do you think about the function of these metal pockets as opposed to just the pockets in your clothes?
They're completely non-functional.
He saw them as being way more functional, which is fascinating.
He is way wrong. Try to put anything into a metal pouch that has no give. Sometimes you gotta put a thing in there.
You gotta rummage around.
You gotta rummage. You got multiple things. When you have a rigid outline, suddenly you're Tetrising in everything in the pocket in order to fit that rigid outline. Whereas if it's stretchy, it doesn't matter.
I also can't imagine how comfortable that is sitting down.
Oh, yeah, I can feel that cutting into me now.
I've worn big belts, and it changes when you sit down, and if it's just a circle of metal around your body, like, that has to dig into your ribs, right?
Now, I've watched Project Runway with you. They do not think at all about what these clothes are going to be like sitting down. So that's on brand for a fashion designer.
That's very true.
Honestly, part of me thought that with this suit that he would just be like, yeah, underwear is not a thing.
Yeah, there were no picture of the underwear and socks, but he does provide handy little diagrams in his article. I'm not even going to bother to show them to you because they're literally just like a cartoon outline of just underwear and socks.
So I've completely redesigned underwear. It looks like underwear.
Right. He even made a point of saying that they're fine in terms of their design. The big thing that he saw in the 21st century is that they would be disposable.
Yeah, I saw that in the description. And disposable socks, like, it's something that I feel like a millionaire would do, is buy 365 pairs of socks and never rewear them. And I imagine that back then, correct me if I'm wrong, I bet it was all tighty-whities. Like, as far as the eye could see, just tighty-whities everywhere. And so we're talking skid marks. And he's like, you know what? This new fashion of the future, we're eliminating skid marks.
Yep. He, in fact, said that they would be made out of this specific material that he called cellulino-samido-methoacrylamine.
How long did you practice that?
A couple times. I also have it broken up for me. But that was all one word. I'll say it one more time. Cellulino-samido-methoacrylamine.
Okay. The only thing I picked out of there was the cellulose. So is it like plant-based fabric?
No idea. It does not exist. This is a completely made-up nonsense sci-fi word where he's attaching things like cellulo and acra, like acrylic, all kind of strung together. He's just completely made this up. If you try to put that word into Google, you get the rare 0 search results. It does not exist. He also thought that these socks and underwear would just be 5 cents each. And so, honestly, I feel like in 1939 money, that's still kind of a lot for something that you're throwing away every day. Am I wrong?
Yeah, like that's a lot to waste. But maybe he's thinking that inflation would exist. I don't know.
Yeah, so that's the outfit. What are your overall thoughts?
I think that he truly understands a number of coming concerns about fashion and facial hair and comfort. And he's just way wrong about a lot of things.
Yeah.
Really shows the difficulty of predicting things for the future. I think one of the things that really gets me, and I think about this all the time, is that when you look at what people wear now, a lot of it would fit in with the past. Like, there are certain styles and things that we like to look that are cut a little differently, or maybe have a different material, or maybe have a different color, but are just really not that far from what we've always worn. I realized that would have been very boring to the pushy New York World's Fair back then. What are we going to look like in the future? And I was like, well, we're probably going to have corduroy and denim.
Right, it's like the fabrics have changed, but the cuts, like a dress is still a dress, and pants are still pants, and, button-up shirt is still largely a button-up shirt.
I wish that they had yoga pants on there, though.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Like
they did miss the boat on the yoga pants.
Because they, like for the women, they recognized that there'd be like a more freedom of movement. They thought that you would still be like wearing lots of flowy stuff. And it's like, nah, we're gonna dress comfortable.
Yep.
So how does this line up with just in general futuristic fashion? Like this feels very futuristic in a way that I can't identify like why.
Right, because like you said, our fashions today are the futuristic fashions of back then, but they're not really that different. But when you and I think of futuristic fashion, we think of a very specific aesthetic, right? We think of these jumpsuits. We think of minimalist. We always think of things being tight. We think of these monochromatic, like soft colors. So yeah, I was really interested in this idea of the futuristic fashion aesthetic as a whole. So I talked with one of my friends, Avery Kendall. Avery is a costumer, an actor I've gotten to work with, and an artist. It's always a privilege anytime I've gotten to work with them. So I reached out and I was really happy they took some time to kind of give me some thoughts about this futuristic aesthetic that is so instantly recognizable. First of all, they wanted to make a point that our predominant idea of the future is very whitewashed. Historically, sci-fi and pop cultures obviously been influenced predominantly by white men, so minorities haven't been able to bring their unique ideas. Now, there are some really cool designs in both indigenous and African futurism that are not minimalistic at all. They're very bright and colorful and busy and expressionistic. So this minimalist, everything's beige is very, I'll say, a white Western perspective of the future, first of all. Avery seemed to think that was related a lot to how we view luxury in society. When you think of things being luxurious, you think of things being clean, right? You don't have white furniture if you are middle class. That's always for like the celebrities and the influencers.
And in general, like modernism, we talk about mid-century modernism, but people saw sleek lines and a clean look as being very heading towards the future. So it kind of makes sense that would go on to fashion as well.
Right. So there's this symbol of like wealth and success when you have cleanliness and straight lines and all that. This whole minimalism and starkness really comes from like the 1950s. Even modern designs, we trace back to that time period, mid-century. We're so fascinated with the designs from back then. I feel like a lot of these original designs came out of that hopefulness for the future, where everything was bright-eyed and shiny and Jetsons and awesome. And as we're starting to get a little bit more negative, is that being reflected in the fashions?
Oh, absolutely. Outside of, the ongoing Star Trek series and stuff, I don't think you see anything that looks towards the future that views it as something that's going to be sleek or jumpsuits or anything.
No, and Avery brought up a really interesting point that what we're starting to see now is a delineation between the villains and the heroes. The villains tend to have that original sleek minimalistic design. Think about Star Wars and the Empire versus the heroes, who are a lot more gritty, a lot more piecemeal, like putting stuff together, a lot more dirty.
Which feels like a remnant of the 60s and the 70s. Star Wars comes out of that too, where the suit represents the man, so the sleekness also represents the man, and we have more individuality on our side.
Exactly, yeah. So, all that being said, Patrick, I think the main question that I'm wondering towards the end of this episode is, what would I have to do to get you to wear that suit? In public.
One, you'd have to get me to lose 20 pounds. Because I don't think that belt's going around this waist. The silhouette would look way different. Also, like, I just don't think I could wear pants like that. I feel like the pants would be comfy.
They look super comfy. They look like little gym jams.
There's just no way you're getting that antenna hat on me I feel like you could almost convince me to do everything else except for the antenna hat. I would wear this at like a Comic-Con and then just have to answer people's questions all day. Like, oh, what are you from? They would all think I'm from a different thing. And it's like, no, I'm just a man of the future.
You're just handing them a copy of the article.
And this explains me. Thank you. But no. As much as I feel like he's right about a number of ideas, there is no part of this execution, outside of maybe the shoes, that I would ever wear.
So what I'm hearing is that this sounds like a great tier for when we finally launch our Patreon. If you join this tier, I will send you a photo of Patrick in the replica outfit from the 1939 Vogue World's Fair issue.
I will do that.
Yes!
If we get... Okay, what's a number that's not happening? If we get 10,000 Patreon followers, I will not only wear that, I will wear that out.
Whoa!
Not near where we live.
Somewhere else.
We will drive to another state, and I will go to a grocery store, and I'll just shop with my little antenna hat.
You heard it here, folks. It is immortalized. If we ever wind up with that happening, Patrick's got to wear the suit. Well, everyone, that's our show. If you like Mistopian, please take a moment to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It's the biggest and best way you can help us make sure that this podcast has a future. You can follow us at Mistopian Pod on all the major social media outlets, though we're mostly active on Twitter and Instagram. You can also check out our website, mistopianpod.com, to get more details about the sources and information used on our show. If you want to drop us a line, you can shoot us a DM on social media, or you can email us at contact@mistopianpod.com. Thank you very much to Avery Kendall for providing their expertise on futuristic fashion in today's episode. You can find them at Stardust1374 on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at IamTheBestAlex, and Patrick on GeoCities, where he will be creating his All About Me webpage with prolific use of the papyrus font. Until next time, remember, our world today is neither utopian nor dystopian. It's simply mistopian. So if you got the chance to design the perfect dude's outfit of the future, what are your must-haves?
Perfect dude's outfit. First of all, it's going to have this awesome, rip-roaring graphic t-shirt. Like this fantastic design that is an obscure reference that 3 people will get, but those 3 people will think that I'm super cool. That's the number one thing that I want to make sure that my outfit of the future has.